The café buzzed with the gentle hum of mid-morning chatter, sunlight spilling through tall windows and glinting off steaming cups of coffee. At a small table by the corner window, a woman named Sophie Lane nervously stirred her latte, pretending to read the menu, though she'd already memorized every word. Her heart thudded louder than the café music. She hadn't been on a date, let alone a blind date, in almost 3 years. After losing her fiancé in a car accident, she had promised herself never to open her heart again. But life has a way of nudging us toward healing, even when we're not ready. If you believe in kindness, love, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light, because stories like this one remind us that miracles often come softly, disguised as ordinary moments. The bell above the door jingled, and Sophie's eyes flicked up. A tall man stepped in, hesitating before scanning the room. His build was strong but gentle, dressed in a light blue shirt that somehow made him look both confident and uncertain at once. A small girl, no more than 6, clutched his hand. The man's name was Ethan Cole, a single father who hadn't been on a date since his wife passed away from cancer 3 years earlier. He'd only agreed to meet Sophie because his sister insisted he deserved to smile again. When their eyes met, Sophie's smile faltered for a second. She hadn't expected him to bring a child. The girl, wearing a yellow sundress and holding a tiny stuffed rabbit, peeked out shyly from behind her father's leg. "Hi," Sophie said softly, waving with uncertain warmth. Ethan nodded politely and guided his daughter to the table. "It's nice to meet you," he said in a quiet, careful tone, as though words were fragile things that might break if spoken too loud. They ordered coffee and apple juice, exchanged polite smiles, and tried to find comfort in small talk. But silence filled the spaces between sentences like an invisible fog. Sophie felt the awkwardness pressing down on her, and Ethan could feel his heart twist with guilt for even being there, trying to start something new when his late wife's memory still lingered in every heartbeat. The little girl, Mia, swung her legs beneath the table, watching the two adults. Children often sense what grown-ups cannot say. Her big brown eyes moved from her father's strained expression to Sophie's trembling hands, and something innocent and brave stirred inside her. She climbed off her chair, walked over to Sophie, and gently took her hand. "Are you my new mommy?" she asked in the smallest, purest voice imaginable. The cafe went utterly silent. Sophie froze. Ethan's coffee cup slipped slightly in his grasp. The question hung in the air like sunlight through a cloud, fragile and full of aching hope. Sophie's throat tightened, her eyes glistened, and she looked down at the tiny hand wrapped around hers. She wanted to answer, but no words came. Ethan's face turned pale. He reached for his daughter's hand gently. "Mia," he whispered, "don't," but Sophie shook her head. "It's okay." She said softly, smiling through her tears, "That's a very sweet question, honey." Mia beamed, and for a moment something unspoken passed between the three of them, something that felt like a door slowly opening. After that, the silence between Sophie and Ethan began to melt away. They talked about their losses, their fears, their quiet nights alone. Ethan spoke of how he'd stopped playing the piano after his wife died because every note reminded him of her laughter. Sophie shared how she still set 2 plates for dinner out of habit. Their pain connected them more deeply than words could describe. Outside, the sky turned a soft golden hue. The morning crowd faded, and laughter from a nearby table reminded Sophie that life went on, even after heartbreak. Mia returned to her seat, drawing flowers on a napkin with crayons the waiter had given her. One of the flowers had 3 petals, one big, 2 small. When Sophie asked about it, Mia said, "It's our family." Ethan looked away, his eyes misting. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "She's still learning that her mom's gone. I should have." Sophie reached across the table, touching his hand. "Don't apologize for love," she said. "That's something most people forget to teach their children." That afternoon turned into an unexpected beginning. They walked together to the park afterward because Mia wanted to feed the ducks. Ethan hesitated at first, but Sophie laughed and said she could use the walk. Mia held both their hands as they strolled along the lake, and for the first time in years, Ethan smiled without feeling guilty. The warmth of the sun reflected on the water, and in that reflection he saw something he hadn't seen in years: hope. Days turned into weeks. Their blind date became coffee every Saturday, walks in the park, helping Mia with her art projects. Sophie found herself laughing again, real, unguarded laughter that came from deep inside. Ethan slowly reopened his heart, playing the piano again one evening while Sophie and Mia danced in the living room. That melody, once a memory of sorrow, became a song of healing. But the real turning point came one afternoon when Mia fell at the playground. Sophie rushed to her faster than anyone else, holding her, calming her tears. When Mia sobbed, "I want mommy," Sophie froze. But then Ethan knelt beside them and whispered, "You have two angels now, one in heaven and one right here." Sophie looked up at him, tears streaming down her cheeks, realizing how far they had come from that silent cafe morning. Months later, on a bright Sunday morning, Ethan invited Sophie and Mia to brunch at the same cafe where they first met. Everything felt different now, the silence replaced by laughter, the awkwardness by comfort. As they finished eating, Mia handed Sophie a small paper folded neatly into a heart. Inside, written in uneven letters, were the words, "Thank you for being my almost. Mommy, can you stay forever?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Ethan, who simply smiled, his eyes speaking the words he couldn't yet say. The cafe bell chimed again as sunlight bathed them in gold. Sophie reached across the table and took both their hands. For the first time she didn't feel broken, she felt chosen. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light. Let's fill the world with stories that remind us that love doesn't always come when we expect it. It comes when we're ready to see it. Special request, comment below. What would you have done if a little girl looked into your eyes and asked, "Are you my new mommy?" Because sometimes the smallest question can heal the biggest wounds.